Hi there, my name is Kate Carraine. I am co-founder of Seed Wellness, and we are here today to talk to the wonderful Caroline Chambers about toxic relationships. And this is all around a theme that we are running at Seed, which is starting a conversation around. And the idea of this concept is to have conversations about things that may be a little bit uncomfortable for people. And so, relationships is one that we felt was really worth addressing, because we're all in relationships, whether it's with a partner or a friend or in a marriage, and it's one of our main pillars of health as well. Our relationships are very important to our well-being. And so we thought that it was worth a little bit of a deeper dive. So Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your time. So just jumping straight into this. So we have talked before about your work as a relationship and family counsellor. You are originally trained with Relate, and you now run your own private practice in Beaconsfield.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say, I do work part-time with Relate still. So I have that work, and then I also have my own practice as my private.
Okay, fantastic. Now, we all go through life making new friends, new connections. However, we know that while some of our relationships remain healthy, others change and can become draining, unfulfilling, and even damaging. So anyone who comes to see you facing issues with their relationship, I'm imagining it could be, like I say, partners, friends, or even a family member. So just firstly, can I just ask you to explain in a nutshell what relationship counselling is?
Yeah, okay. So relationship counselling is basically, it's a form of talking therapy, which is focused on improving the quality of your relationship. And that, as you say, the relationship can be with a partner, can be with children, it can be with parents, it can be with, sometimes it can be with just a subset of a family or a whole family, but also work, socially, friends, we have relationships, as you said, with anybody. So it's about the quality of that relationship and how that can be improved.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so how can relationship counselling help people specifically struggling within their relationship?
I think when people are struggling in a relationship, it can feel all pervading. It affects every aspect of your life. It's very hard most people can't really compartmentalize issues they're having in a relationship, whether it's with a colleague at work or at home. And so when it becomes that sort of all-consuming, you're in that frame of mind, it sometimes is quite difficult to see a way out, to see how you can change things, how you can improve things. You might not understand how the relationship has come to that. So by coming to seeking counselling, it just enables you to have that safe space where you can talk about how you're feeling, what emotions are going on for you, what the experience is like with this relationship that's not going so well. And hopefully through the course of that, can find ways to approach the problems and find solutions.
Okay, fantastic. So big question here, and I know it's one that people would ask. Do you tend to see people together, or can people, if there's one person struggling, can they come and see you on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. And funnily enough, people are always really surprised when I say that I work with individuals, because relationship counselling, you tend to think that has to be done with the people who are involved in the relationship. So I do work with individuals. Obviously, I work with couples and families and all combinations of relationship. And being that it is relational that I work with, it's usually better if you can have all parties who are involved in that relationship. But however, sometimes that's not practical. And if somebody doesn't want to come to counselling, then you can't make them come, and it's not the right thing to make them come at all. So yes, I do work with a lot of individuals. I actually work with not just husbands, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, but also mothers who might be struggling with relationship, with seeing what's going on between their children. It might just be sibling problems, siblings not talking to each other, and the mother wants to know how to help. It could be a child who's having a problem with a parent, whether they're living with them or not. So yeah, so absolutely I can work with individuals, and again, allowing them the space and the time to be able to talk about what's going on for them. And what I can at least do is offer them a different perspective, try and get them to see what things might be like for the other person, so that they can then perhaps develop strategies for trying to improve that relationship.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so what types of issues do you tend to see most in clinic around relationships?
Yeah, so wide ranging set of issues. I think probably what underpins all of them is a breakdown in communication somewhere. And communication, of course, is both things, isn't it? It's talking, but it's also listening. So when people stop listening to each other or don't feel like they're being listened to, then that's when you can have the arguments, the misunderstandings, the conflict, all those sorts of things. So that tends to be when people feel that they need to get some help. But in terms of the types of problems, what triggers those sort of breakdowns in the communication, a lot of life stage issues, they really impact on a relationship. So anything that's a bit of a change, so whether it's, you know, getting married, having children, losing a job, losing a loved one, empty nesters, caring for older people, you know, older generation. So it can be anything like that. Also, then you've got trust, infidelity, so wide range of things that you can, all aspects of relationship problems, I get probably an equal measure.
Okay, so particularly in marriages, there are often kids, shared homes, you know, so simply walking away from a relationship that's not comfortable or feels toxic, and we'll define what toxic is in a minute. You know, it's often unappealing for people, if not unviable. It could be emotionally, logistically, even financially out of reach. So what would your advice be to those people who cannot leave, even if they want to?
So that's an interesting question, because normally when I get people coming to see me, it's because they've identified a problem, or even if they don't know specifically what the issue is, they just know that they're not happy in their relationship. But part of the reason, I think the main reason why they're coming to a relationship counsellor is because they haven't lost all hope at that point. So they still feel that perhaps there's a way to improve the quality of that relationship. So that would always be my initial focus, is let's look at the relationship. You know, is there something that, you know, have you just lost sight of the good because you're bogged down in what's not going so well, which so often happens? And perhaps if we look at things differently, is there a way of trying to improve the relationship? But you're right, if they've invested a lot of time and effort, and they have joint anything, assets, children, finances, friendships, anything like that, then it's quite hard for people to break away, you know, to leave that relationship. And I would never be the person to advise someone whether they should stay or they should go, but the process that I would go through with them, with any of my clients, would be to help them to come to their own decisions, the decision that's going to be right for them. But they will have given it the necessary amount of attention and thought before making any decision like that.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so the big question, when is it time to leave a relationship? I know we've just sort of said, you know, people you're going to focus on, but what are the signs to look out for when the relationship is over?
Yeah. There's two things here, isn't there? One is if the relationship has become toxic. So it might not be over, but it's just an unhealthy relationship. And nobody should be in an unhealthy relationship, because when we talk about unhealthy relationships, it's not just the mental, emotional side of things, but it's also physical. There are definitely somatic responses. You know, people get all sorts of physical ailments when they're in an unhealthy relationship. So nobody should be in an unhealthy relationship. As I said, if there is a way of changing behaviors, you know, that relationship could be unhealthy because of an addiction, or because of something that's happened to one partner, which has made them become more stressed, more unpleasant to be around. And so that may be a temporary situation where if you can help them and you can support them and you can get them to realize that their behavior is not healthy and not having a healthy effect on you, then they're prepared to make the changes, then you can reverse that toxicity. But yes, sometimes a relationship is it is over for whatever reason. And it might not even be because it's toxic or unhealthy. It's just they've grown apart, the couple have grown apart too far, and they're just not going to be able to come back. They're on different paths and they've gone too far down that path. So the two things are slightly different. But I think the key thing to remember is that a healthy relationship is one where whatever else is going on in your life, you can come home and you know that you feel safe, you feel secure, you're made to feel better about yourself, you feel loved, you feel cared for. And in a healthy relationship, both parties should grow and develop in that relationship, not be held back, not made to feel bad, not made to feel like they've done things wrong or that they're not good enough, which is what happens when a relationship becomes toxic.
Interesting. Okay. So often people can become stuck in negative friendships, relationships for extended periods, years or even a lifetime. Why is this? Why can't people make that change? What holds them back?
Yeah, good question. And it can be a number of things. So, when you've got, if you've been together with somebody for a long time, let's say in a marriage or in a relationship, partnership, and you've been together for 20 years or 10 years, but, many, many years, and you have got children together, you've got a life together, you've got friends, it's almost like you can't remember a time before being in that relationship. And at the start of the relationship, it was healthy and it was a good relationship and you wanted to be in that relationship. So over time, it might have happened gradually that the relationship has deteriorated. And so you may not realize it for a long time, and you may not actually notice that it's got to the point where actually it either needs to end or you need to do some work on it. So it can be insidious in that way. But and the other thing is, when a relationship goes like that, particularly if one person is perhaps a little bit more controlling, manipulative, that's when we get into the realms of what's a really unhealthy relationship. Then it can affect someone's self-esteem as well, their self-worth, or they might blame themselves and think, well, maybe it's my fault, and if I try harder, this relationship will be better. But we're all social beings, and calling time on a relationship is quite hard for us to do, because it goes against really what we want to do. We want to have nice relationships with people. We want to be around other people. So cutting that off with everything else that you might stand to lose when you just cut off that one person or end a relationship with that one person, that's a big decision to make. And sometimes it's easier to just bury your head and try and carry on.
Yeah, I think probably, I think because now in our modern world, people tend to leave more than they used to. Relationships break. The divorce rate here in the UK is I remember we had this conversation before. I can't remember the stats. I think is it 1 in 2 marriages don't survive.
Yeah.
And it is quite easy to walk away, and it's nice to hear that you say that actually often things are salvageable, but it's just about maybe putting the work in and trying to find, that kind of, I suppose, mediation as well, someone to come in and help you overcome. So in your view, what are the top most important tips for people looking to heal their relationship?
Yeah. Okay. So the first one I would say is recognize that you've got a problem. And I know that might sound really obvious when I say that, but I think a lot of people, because we're all so busy, everyone's so busy, and there's so many other stresses and strains, and it's a case of, oh, if I don't think about that, then, if I distract myself in other ways, if I go and see my friends and focus on the children, maybe that will just, I don't have to think about that. But actually, the first thing you need to do is face your problems head on. They're only going to get better. They're only going to change if you accept that there's a problem and you face it. And there is help and support out there now. We're luckier than we've ever been before with all the support that is available to us. So first thing is to face up to your problems and deal with it. Then I think the next most important thing, or maybe is the most important thing, maybe these are all equal, is communication. Often the relationship has, as I say, has broken down because the communication has broken down. And so just talking about things and listening to each other. And that's often where talking therapy or counselling can help, because it really ensures that both parties have an equal say and equally heard and equally valued, so that one person doesn't feel like they're not being listened to. So communication is, is really key. Got to have to accept that you're going to have to make some changes. It's that age-old Einstein thing, isn't it, which I'm going to misquote, but basically, if you keep carrying on doing the same thing, you're always going to get the same. It's only a fool who expects there to be changes if you carry on doing the same thing over and over. So you're going to have to commit to make some changes. And I believe that change has to be on both sides. So it's never one person who needs to change, it's both people who need to change. And in order to be able to do that, you need to invest some time. You need to invest some time in your relationship. Time in, if you're talking about a couple, spend time together. You might be living in the same house, but how much time do you actually, good quality time, do you actually spend together? Whether it's a date night or just having dinner together and, or cooking together, or just anything at all, going for a walk, taking the dog for a walk together, but spending time together is really important. And part of that is showing, it doesn't have to be romantic love when we say love, but showing love and appreciation for that other person. Just kind of recognizing that they're there and you're both in this together and you value what you have. So time and appreciation is really, really important as well.
Okay, well, that's really helpful. And I think it's really good to talk to you about it because, as I said earlier, relationships are key for everyone, all of us. So I hope this information has been helpful to people out there who are watching this. So if people wanted to get hold of you, they can find you on the Seed Wellness website, seedwellness.co.uk/Caroline Chambers. They can, and all your information and contact details and everything are on there. So anything else you want to share?
The only other thing I just want to say is that I'm increasingly seeing young people now coming who have just got engaged and they want to make sure that their relationship is healthy and in a good place before they actually make that step and get married. And what does marriage going to look like? And that's fantastic because I think with every other aspect of our life now, we know we need to look after ourselves. We need to think about, our work-life balance, our nutrition, our sleep, our diet, our exercise. But within all of those things that we think about, very rarely does relationship get put in there. And actually relationships need a lot of nurturing and a lot of looking after. And if you don't nurture and look after your relationship, then it will suffer. So yeah, so just kind of thinking about it, even in the good times, don't take things for granted, as well as making sure that you get help when the bad times come.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And it's the younger people who I guess are more open to, everything in terms of wellness and prevention and everything else. So that's really interesting that they're going down that path, and hopefully, that's going to show out in the results later, like in a few years' time.
Yes.
Thank you again for your time, Caroline. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate. Bye.